Hello and welcome to this special holiday edition tutorial where I'm going to show you how I turn this painting that you see here that's more of an evening fall scene into a winter scene. Now, the challenge with this painting was that I didn't want to start from scratch. I had created this top painting that you see first, and I wanted to see it by, just kind of separating my layers, painting on top, using adjustment layers and all that stuff. I wanted to see if I could not start from scratch and turn it into the same scene, but winter times, like a transition of seasons. So what I actually did was I actually did 3 color key variations below. You can see that on the bottom panel. I have some of my references pulled up, really different references from different artists for the shadow colors of the snow, maybe different ideas for lighting. And I wanted to just play around and see if I could come up with 3 different moods. So you can see the first one is more of a bluish tone, maybe a little bit not as cheery. The middle one, I really want to go for like a cheery morning snowy look. And the third one was maybe just sunrise, a little bit more subdued, but maybe not as, sinister, as you'll say, as the first one. So I just wanted to think out of the box. I decided to go with the middle one. So I'm going to be following the middle color key for my painting. Now, if you look at my layers, what you can see is that I've actually gone ahead already and separated my main elements into different layers because I know that if I do this, it'll save me a lot of headache in the future. So my house is on a separate layer and I just use the lasso tool and I copy and pasted it. My trees are sort of one big mass, right? So I actually selected all those together and I put that all as one layer. And then my snow in the midground is another layer. So my snow/ground. And then my foreground sloping hill is another layer. And then my sky is another layer. That's the most bottom layer. So as you can see, because I have these things on separate layers, I can already really quickly start adjusting the values and the colors for my different elements of my painting, like the house, the trees, the snow, and start color picking from my color key and kind of getting a quick feel of how I want the mood to show in this painting. Now, this painting was not easy to do. There's actually, I will say, I recorded this and then there's a time where in the middle, I tweaked it a little bit, decided I didn't like that version at all. And then I went back to my previous saved version and then started working off of that. So you're going to see all that. But you can see right now what I'm doing is I'm not using too many fancy adjustment layers yet. Right now, I'm just using a warming filter to see how that will feel if I just put a slight warming kind of glow in the back. But you can see it very quickly because I've started off with the color key. I'm not guessing as much, right? And this is when it becomes really crucial to sort of map out how you want the lighting and the colors of your piece to go, right? A lot of times, sometimes when you don't have time, you might just have to get into the thick of it. But I had time. And so I just wanted to push myself and plan out a little bit better. Now, with this composition, I did use grids to plan out my composition. So you can see, hopefully you can see that the elements are composed with intention. Grids is something that I talk a lot in my digital painting mentorship, how to compose intentionally. And I like to put that in my own work. So now you can see based on the color key, I'm starting to play around with putting a little bit light in the snow. So what I'm doing technically wise is I'm clipping this layer into my ground. So basically, because I've clipped it, you can see that arrow, the arrows in my layer panel, they all clip to the base layer. Whatever I paint, it won't go outside that ground mass. So I'm just playing around with some snow shapes right now. And compositionally, I'm trying to see if I can use that snow shape to lead your eye towards the house. My house, I want to be the focal point, and I want that to be the area of highest contrast. And I want everything to flow kind of towards that and away from that. Now, what you can see doing here is I'm just throwing a little bit of texture. I'm actually literally picking colors from my color key, which is why color keys come in handy. And then I'm just throwing them on top. So you can see, I will say my original painting had this weird like noise filter that I put on top, and I wouldn't recommend doing it because it makes color picking really weird, because I think it like fractalizes the color and you end up picking like really wide ranges of colors. So I wouldn't do that in the future, or maybe just do it at the very end. But that's why sometimes, as a warning, you'll see me picking like really weird colors that might feel wrong or saturated. I don't mean to pick those colors. It's just that when I try to pick from my piece, so I don't have to invent new colors, it sort of wildly goes off, too saturated. So that's kind of what happened. I went to filter noise, I think it is, and then I put like a noise filter or something. So as you can see now, I'm still figuring out the colors. I'm still figuring out the values. How much do I want the trees to be pushed in the back? Do I want the trees in the back to be a silhouette against the sky? How dark do I want them to be? And how much light do I want hitting the trees, right? I will say that throughout working on this piece, I realized later on, and I didn't realize this in the beginning, but later on, that my trees had too much contrast in the back. So that whole mass of diagonal trees, it was drawing too much attention from the house. So later on, you'll see that I toned down the value contrast of those trees. But for the majority of the time, I sort of, I didn't realize that till the end. And that comes with stopping, taking breaks from your painting, coming back and looking at it with fresh eyes. I did split this painting up into 3 sessions. So I did not do this painting all in one session. And by splitting it up, taking breaks, coming back with fresh eyes, you can really gain new perspective. So right now, what you see me doing is I'm still experimenting, and you can see it's not working. I wanted to see if I could change the shape language a little bit and make the trees more triangular, more angular. And so I was using the U tool, the U triangular shaped tool, to see if I could put that down. But I didn't like it because I don't think it fits the overall shape language. I have a lot of curves, and more, elegant curves in my painting. And so what I ended up doing now, you can see, is I'm taking the marquee tool. And this is a trick that I use when I want to just shade one part of something in light, or I want to hit one part in light and have the rest recede in shadow. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking a textured brush. This is Mike McCain's foliage brush, and I highly recommend you check out his brush pack. You can buy it on his Gumroad, I think, or website for a price. And what I'm doing is I'm just painting in the certain areas that I know the trees will be hit in light. And because I'm using a marquee tool, it's only going to keep that shape. So, just ignore this. I couldn't save it because it was too big. So I had to just merge a bunch of stuff and fix up my file a little bit. But you can see now, by doing that trick with the marquee tool, I'm already getting a really quick indication of light hitting the foliage. So, you can see here that it's a very quick way to start getting your light in. So as you can see here, I'm employing that trick again, and I'm thinking here with the trees in shadow, they're receiving some of the ambient light from that cooler purple sky. So I'm just basically kind of top lighting those trees a little bit. The top canopies of those trees will receive that cooler light source from the sky that doesn't have light in it yet, because the light's coming from the right-hand side. So just a little bit of that hint, you can see, just reveals and gives depth and volume to the trees a little bit more. And what I like to do is, you can see I'm cutting in now. So I'm using a mask, and I'm actually cutting in with a textured brush so that we can get even more nuance in the texture. And I'm just finding the right amount of contrast between those trees. I don't want these trees to look too scallopy, right? I don't want them to look like fish scales, even scallopy kind of pattern. So I want to make sure that when I'm placing the marquee tool shape, I'm varying the spacing, varying the size, and you can see now that looks a little bit more organic. So when I want to get more graphic shapes like this is how I try to get for this. Is just my way. There's many different ways, but this is the way that's easiest to me. And I'm now just just toning down the opacity of the layer because I felt a little bit too busy over there. So now I'm just decreasing the opacity so they don't show up as much. And now you get a nice sort of nuanced value structure in the trees in the back there. Some trees are popping more than others. You can see I keep doing that in the back of those trees. This time I want to add some grayer trees, some trees that are just receding in the shadow, but still just hitting a little bit of that light. So because there's a pop of saturation right there in those back trees, I'm thinking that I need to balance it with a little bit of grays, right? So this is a grayer kind of purple, reddish gray. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm using a mask and now I'm cutting into and erasing the light so that we just have a little bit of that light peeking through.